Belarus, Russia is a big supply of coal into the European market because of what's happening. There's a big shortage of this stuff, and then it's sort of kind of thing that going forward, the new world situation. It's not about how many nuclear warheads you have; it's about what you have, because I'm not saying that nuclear warheads is not a deterrent, but as you said, right? It's about what you have and what you can do in sort of a non-war situation, right? And I guess touching on what you've said in terms of the electrification of the world, no emission world. What's your thoughts? Because we have talked about the fact that you potentially can play the green tin card and things like that, and look, it's a trade-off, right? It's a trade-off being mining. It's a trade-off being perception of green and etc. etc. What's your thoughts now that obviously you're going into this thing hands-on, right? Jumping in the water. What's your thoughts there?
Well, we're in Tasmania, the west coast of Tasmania. We're in the middle of a hydropower system. We sit between two dams, hydropower stations there with the dams, and Tasmania is already net zero emissions. So, when we talk about ESG, environmental stuff's done. So we're very well positioned with renewable energy. So that's what we'll be tapping into that for our mine, and obviously everything that's battery driven or electricity based will be all hydropower energy because it's already going past our doorstep. Not to mention all the wind farms that they're building there on the west coast of Tasmania and the northwest there. So big tick in the box there. So and certainly when TMEC, the Tasmanian Mining and Energy Council, has done some work, and when you look at what we do versus when you go around the world, we because of doing net zero emissions, our carbon footprint is less than anywhere else in the world. So the best place to be mining is on the west coast of Tasmania, which is counterintuitive compared to some of the other groups that are sort of saying against mining there on the west coast of Tasmania, whereas here, in a global sense, this is a global problem, climate change. It's not a we can't say don't mine here because we don't want you to go and mine, for example, ripping out alluvial tin out of the DRC or dredging the seafloor of Indonesia or using child labour. Yeah. Myanmar, well, there's no rehabilitation happening in Myanmar, they're just ripping it out in the ground. So this is responsibly sourced. We've got the system, the permitting, so the governance is a big tick. We're on the west coast of Tasmania where it's a mining community of 140 years. So we've got the social tick, like you can't keep everyone happy, but you've got to have a balance, to do what we need to do into building electric vehicles, to build battery driven, to reduce our emissions. You've got to think about where are the best places to world in the mine, and the west coast of Tasmania is one of the best places in the world. And with good practices, you can minimise your footprint. We're going underground. You do all that. You can rehabilitate. Today's rehabilitation, I can go back to the old workings. The area we've got is all regeneration because they've gone through and they've mined it 100 years ago at the surface, and it's just grown back. You've got 3 metres of rain a year. It grew back by itself. I was walking through, a couple of weeks ago, looking at the old workings, and even since we were there drilling 8 years ago, it's starting to get hard to find the tracks and the roads. It's regrowing by itself, but by us mining and applying, today's best practice principles to rehabilitation, and we can have that growing. Put the topsoil back instead of just having these boulders that have been blasted from alluvial hydraulic mining, and do put the topsoil aside, plant the seed, do all that which you do today. Then all of a sudden the impact is almost zero, and so it's a. So I think the green tin angle, we tick all the boxes there, and we're not, people the hydropower is there anyway. We're going underground because we're trying to reduce the capex of the much smaller, higher grade, and a lot of that's we were doing already. But just the fact that the ESG side of things has become very prominent today, is a coincidence as far as we're concerned for us. But we're in a great place, to support, I suppose, the world's push towards climate change and getting down to net zero. So we're going to be a big contributor in that space going forward.
Because, from my previous work in New Zealand, the studies showing that all alluvial gold mines, actually after they've gone through, they're actually more productive than they were before, because a lot of the clay has been taken out and the drainage has allowed regrowth, and everyone said that the best ground's the one where these guys have been, so in those valley floors and things like that. So rehab does have positive, as you said, in places where there's hardly any rain, they've been able to regrow things back. In Tasmania, I don't think it'll be that hard. You got so much rain, right?
Oh, exactly. I think if anyone looks at the old Cleveland tin mine, I had a look at that probably 15 years ago. You look on Google Earth, you can't hardly see it. The only part you can see is where there's this steep, fresh rock on the ROM pad, because it's such a high angle. It's the only thing that hasn't been taken back by the environment. It's just almost disappeared. And I suppose I got a little bit of a snapshot because that was mined in the 70s. So we're talking about nearly, back then it was 30, 40 years. Now it's 50 years. It's just grown back. So as a consequence, do that properly, take advantage of the climate you're in, and you can, rehabilitate and regenerate this very quickly. So your impact is, like I said, very quickly becomes zero.